Good morning and welcome to our President's Forum. This is our first step in the college developing its strategic plan. What occurred this summer is Ed Becker, and where is Ed, please? Ed Becker, with his committee, began the process of planning for the college's next strategic planning process. And I want everyone to thank Ed Becker. His work is before you. Thank you, Ed. I'm Anita Glinetsky. I'm the president of Housatonic Community College, and it is my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to this President's Forum. What we will be doing this morning is hearing from each of our distinguished panelists as they address the very basic question: what is the role of a community college in the state of Connecticut, and specifically, what are their expectations for Housatonic Community College? We have many changes that have occurred in the state. Many more changes and challenges will be coming forward. This college has always met these challenges, and our strategic plan will need to reflect our next steps, our next years as we move forward to meet the needs of our community. What you have on the table before you are our vital statistics from this fall semester, our view book. We also have other data that is available to you. And this morning, I really look forward to hearing this panel discussion because the information garnered this morning from our panelists and from your work at each of the tables will then be used as we complete internal forums with cross-discipline, cross-area groups on the campus. And our goal is to complete our strategic plan in November of this year. So it's an ambitious and very quick time frame, but when you think of strategic planning, you complete it and then you're constantly looking at it, making sure that it's current and meeting your needs. So it's a plan that I know that we will be able to meet at this college. So this morning, our panelists will be introduced by our moderator, whom I will introduce. Carla Tillery is a let me get your exact title, Director of Operations and Principals at Fitzgerald and Halliday. I was on a panel in the Stratford School District in which Carla moderated. She is fantastic. So we tracked her down and said, would you please lead this panel so that it's interactive for our panelists and it's interactive for our participants this morning. So Carla, thank you so much for doing this. And if you would introduce our distinguished panelists.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm indeed excited to have been tracked down to help moderate this discussion, and I'm very excited to be here. And we have such an esteemed panelist, and I'm excited about the discussion today, as well as just seeing all of you, because this is a very important process that you are now participating in, to be able to hear from the panelists, as well as later on you'll have an opportunity to provide some input into the community college and just moving education forward. I want to do just a very quick poll just to see who all is here, just so that the panelists and myself have an idea of who's represented here in the room. So just by show of hands, how many of you are affiliated with Housatonic Community College, whether you're a staff, teacher, faculty? All right, beautiful, awesome. And how many of you are from just the community at large, from a business or some other affiliation? All right, great. So we've got good input from the community as well as in-house here. So thank you again. And what I would like to do initially is to do a brief introductions of all of our panelists. We're going to ask all of them to share a little bit about either their passion for education or the role of the community college or about this particular process. And then afterwards, we'll have some questions to ask them. And hopefully we'll have some time left, and I would like to open up the floor for questions in an answer period for you to be engaged with the panelists. So I'll start all the way to my right, to your left, with State Representative Andres Ayala Jr. Please stand. He has represented the 128th District since 2006. He's no stranger to the education or community involvement. He is a Bridgeport native and he has worked for the Bridgeport Public Schools for 19 years. He was a member of the Bridgeport City Council for 10 years, serving as majority leader of that body for 3 years, and as president for 2. Andrea's commitment to his community goes beyond that of an elected official. He also serves on various boards and community groups. He helped organize the first annual Walk to End Homelessness, and he is the founder and co-chairman of Bridgeport's Hispanic Heritage Committee, which celebrates Hispanic Heritage Month. We welcome you, State Representative. Next, sitting next to him, we have State Senator Beth Bai. She has represented the 5th District since 2010. She's no stranger to higher education. In addition to serving on the Legislative Appropriations, Education, Internship, and Judiciary committees, she chairs the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee, which is involved with all matters related to public and independent colleges and universities. First elected to the legislature from the 19th Assembly District in 2006, she was named Legislator of the Year in 2009 and 2011 by the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance and was named one of a dozen environmental champions by the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters. Welcome. Next, we have Ms. Marge Hiller. Since 1984, she has served as Executive Director of the Bridgeport Public Education Fund, which is a local education fund that develops programs and mobilizes the community for quality public education in Bridgeport. She is responsible for program development and implementation, overseeing the MAACS College Access Program, and maintaining contact with the educational community. Under her leadership, BPEF has been nationally recognized for its groundbreaking work in community engagement by Public Agenda and the Catering Foundation. Also, it has been recognized nationally by the Annenberg Foundation and the National College Access Network for their college access and college success programs. Welcome. Dr. Bob Kennedy. He is the president of the Connecticut Board of Regents for Higher Education. A veteran higher education administrator, he comes to Connecticut from the University of Maine, where he advanced through the ranks of senior management to president. One of the hallmarks of his presidency was interinstitutional collaboration. He brought together academic institutions and companies from various sectors, effectively promoting public-private partnerships. These collaborations spurred economic development, provided new academic opportunities for students, and improved upon the efficient use of resources. Welcome, Dr. Kennedy. Next, we have Ms. Kathy Saint. She is the president and owner of Bridgeport Schwertel Stamp Company, a 130-year-old manufacturer of tools, dies, and fixtures for marking and decorating a variety of materials, including plastic, metal, leather, and wood. As the head of a company that's witnessed the deindustrialization of the Bridgeport area and the Great Recession, Kathy appreciates value of education and the positive impact it could have on business. She serves on the Regional Advisory Council for the Housatonic Community College. Welcome. And certainly not least, we have Dr. James Schmatter. He's the president of Western Connecticut State University in Danbury. Joining Western in 2004, he has led the college efforts to realize a new vision, that of a public university featuring arts and professional programs on an arts and science basis, mirroring New England's best small private universities, but at a fraction of the cost. During his tenure, WestConn's enrollment has grown by 26%. And its graduation rate by 30%. More than $104 million in capital development projects have been undertaken on its 2 campuses. Schmatter came to Western from Western Michigan University, where he served as Dean of the Haworth College of Business for 7 years. We welcome you. So you can tell we're in for some good information today. We're going to start with Senator Bai, and I would just like for you to just sort of share some of your thoughts about this process and the community colleges at large. And we'll go around and I'll just kind of ask you all to just share maybe about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll go into some questions.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today, and I would say there's a lot more knowledge out there that's going to drive this process, but hopefully we can give you some tidbits or some energy around ideas that you want to talk about. So thank you for having me. And it's National Peace Day today, so I want to wish you Happy Peace Day. I know that if it was Veterans Day or 9/11, we would all be talking about that, so I'd like to just say that I do really see a link with Peace Day and education and quality of life, because we know that in countries where there's a higher quality of life, where there's economic justice, where there's a highly educated public, there's less likely to be wars, frankly. So what you're doing is that important. You're giving people a quality of life that matters. In terms of, you asked that I speak about something I'm passionate about related to higher education. And I would say that I'm passionate about a lot of things, but probably what I'm most passionate about is that it's never too late for a student who's had challenges to turn it around and make it. You know, I'm married to a high school teacher who believes that, who has students who come who can't write a sentence and who leave writing paragraphs and thinking complexly and like historians. And so many in this room have committed your career to this idea that it's never too late for a student to turn it around and get an education and improve their quality of life. So I'm really inspired by that. I'm very inspired by the idea that we as a state have invested in community colleges, and just walking in this building and seeing that the president was telling me to move from an old Singer factory here. And that as a state, over the past 10 to 15 years, we've really raised up community colleges to say, you matter and your students deserve a beautiful facility just like everything else. I'm also really passionate about this idea of collaboration with business and community college, and collaboration with high school and community college. And I think, you know, we have Kathy and Dr. Schmatter to talk about those things. But as a public policy official, I would say those are two of the most exciting things that I see that are changing for community college and us as a state, those collaborations that Dr. Kennedy is promoting. So I'll stop there and just say I'm excited about a lot of things, but I just want to thank you all for the work that you do, never giving up on students. So thank you.
Great, awesome. State Representative.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here and hosting this great forum here at our great Housatonic Community College, a college that I know has a tremendous involvement in our community. And I think the passion that I like to speak about this morning is really that, talking about how Housatonic has made so many inroads into our community. As a high school teacher for 17 years, and now I currently work in the adult education department, I see the importance of having a community college that understands some of the failings of our high school system, but yet opens its doors to ensure that these students have a future. And I've had the opportunity to speak in several of your professors' classes, and in having those conversations with those students, many of which who had come through my classes when I taught at Bassick High School, to see the level of growth of where they were at the high school level and where they are at now when I'm having a conversation about political science or having a conversation about whatever's going on in the community, it really makes me look and say, it's working. And oftentimes we talk about the things that aren't working, but the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of positive things that are happening. And going back to the local level and talking about Housatonic, one of the things that really impresses me about Housatonic is the fact that just this past year alone, there was a legislative, well, not a legislative roundtable, but there was a roundtable discussion with Latino leaders in the community and talking about how can we ensure that we're bringing more folks from the community into the college. And I think one of the things that Senator Bai and us at the House worked on, we passed the Connecticut Dream Act. And what a great opportunity to give some of our actually valedictorians and salutatorians a chance to go to college. And that is something that, I mean, we took the lead. I mean, our national government, they hemmed and hawed about it, but Connecticut took the lead and said, you know what, it's wrong to leave these students out. We have to find the opportunity for them to do it. Fact of the matter is, looking at how much it costs to go to any, whether a private or a state college, the cost is phenomenal. And knowing that at the local level, we have community colleges that have made it affordable and can give them the opportunity to go, I mean, that's something I'm truly passionate about. And we have to even go out and expand it and create more opportunities for these students, because these are some of our best resources in the state, and we're kind of shutting the door and saying, we don't want to give them access. So I want to commend Housatonic on leading those kinds of conversations to ensure that there is participation, ensuring that we can open the doors and make sure that Housatonic Community College is absolutely that, a college of the community. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Kennedy.
Great, thanks, Carla. First, congratulations to President Glenicki and Ed on hosting this forum. I've been associated with strategic planning in a lot of different ways, and this is the first time I've seen this kind of open forum, and I really do applaud it, and especially having community members here. I've been in Connecticut in my current position a little over a year now, so a lot of my maybe observations that I'll try to share with you. When I arrived a little over a year ago, I set about visiting all 17 colleges and universities that are in the Connecticut State College and University system. And Housatonic Community College was the first college I visited. So I started off with certainly among the best. And one of the things that I would say generally is that the state of Connecticut is very well served by a very robust and really excellent public higher education system. Two, and Senator Bai knows this certainly better than I do, with the reorganization of the three different systems, I think it is providing some resources and rededication and reorganization that was needed and will best serve the people of Connecticut. Certainly part of it was saving money, and I'll come back to that in a little bit, and certainly being efficient and responsible to the students and the future of the state as well. One of the things that I noticed, pardon me, after my visits, particularly to the community colleges, because my perception, I think the perception of the general public is that the community colleges may be an entrance point for students, may be the best source for obtaining middle skills for jobs, practical or applied programs. In visiting the 12 community colleges, and not necessarily my experience here at Housatonic, I wasn't shown those programs by the community college presidents. I was generally shown programs that are more oriented toward liberal arts, and I guess that's what they thought they should show me, maybe what they thought I should see, but I was really struck that after visiting all 12 community colleges, some of the applied, more trade-oriented programs, manufacturing programs, that wasn't what I was showed. And yet those kinds of programs, I think there's a generally increasing appreciation in the country for those kinds of programs and for educating and training and providing skills that our students need for the current workplace. Certainly in higher education, the pendulum swings, but right now, in terms of economic development and the role of community colleges in particular of preparing students for the future, some of those applied programs, whether it be nursing or automotive programs, are what our economy needs, what students want, and skills that are needed. Across all 12 community colleges, by far the largest program is liberal studies. Nothing against liberal studies, but and it prepares you for many things. But I think that illustrates sort of where the public is thinking about college, and not necessarily thinking about some of the applied or trade programs, but thinking more about general education programs. In the U.S., as I indicated, the pendulum has swung. I thought an interesting story, and this really relates to the reorganization of higher ed. I think there was a general view among the community colleges that with this organization of 17 different colleges and universities being thrown in with the universities, that the universities would be the big dog, the big player in this, and the community colleges would be sort of left behind. Then I visited, and I know names, but I visited one of the universities, and the faculty were concerned that there was too much power within the community colleges. So I think, there's it wasn't Western. But I think it's sort of interesting that both groups are sort of fearing the the power or the importance of the other group. But I guess, like many things political, if you're in the middle and you're getting extremes on both sides, you're doing something well. Twice in the last week, I've seen a news report nationally about how the students graduating from the South Dakota School of Mines, an applied technical program, have a $2,000 wage advantage to the graduates of Harvard University. And I think that says something too in terms of what students are getting and what they expect versus the reality. I don't think the reality has necessarily caught up with us. Also, the new study by in the state of Tennessee, students receiving an Associate of Arts degree can earn roughly $1,400 more than students getting a bachelor's degree. Now, over their lifetime, those that receive a bachelor's degree have a higher accumulated salary or benefit, but initially out of college. And I think this says a lot about the value we place in society on the degrees and the training and the education that students get. A couple specific things about Housatonic when I was here. Housatonic is one of the larger community colleges. I think it's the 5th largest among the 12. It's also one of 4 schools in our 3 largest cities, along with Capital, Gateway, and Southern Connecticut State University. One of the benefits of the reorganization was to move monies from administration or bureaucracy, and I use that as a pejorative term, move money from the bureaucracy to the campuses, to the students, to the programs. And certainly we've done that. And Housatonic, maybe benefited, Housatonic is going to get or has gotten 4 new faculty positions. And in part, it's because of the good programs that Housatonic has. And also, Housatonic had, in some areas, the highest student to faculty ratio. So there's really a need to apply the resources here. Housatonic and higher education in general across the country has many challenges. Certainly the unpreparedness of some students to enter college, and certainly that's been a major topic and a major focus, and I think some directions headed in the right direction within the state legislature. Doing away with or eliminating, trying to eliminate remedial education. Many of the community colleges in particular have a majority of the students who come to them unprepared, one might say, in needing remedial education. Cost is certainly a factor, and here I think the pendulum is swinging toward public colleges and universities as independent colleges, higher education in general is really becoming unreachable for an awful lot of people. Again, tying back to this forum and the plan for a strategic plan here at Housatonic, it fits very nicely because the Board of Regents for Connecticut higher education is also considering a strategic plan. So I think as these things come together, there will be a presentation at the next Board of Regents meeting. So these things come together, and Housatonic can play a very, very important role in shaping higher education across the state of Connecticut. Thanks, Carla.
Thank you. Kathy Saint.
My experience with Housatonic, I'm not sure exactly how long it goes back, but it's certainly at least 10 years. And I went to Minneapolis to do a presentation with some people from Housatonic on a project that a group of metal manufacturers had been working on, which we called Adapt or Die. And the message from the project was that for businesses like mine who are, multiple generations and have been here a very long time, that there's a reason why we're here. And the reason is, I'm sorry, I didn't turn my mic on. Can everything hear me okay? And the reason is that we have had to adapt to changing times over the years. Back in around World War II, we were very busy working with the metal manufacturing industry, the machine tool industry, supplying gun manufacturers, things for the war. Then it changed when the war was over to more products that were going to be used here at home. Then we started seeing a lot of our customers moving away from this area and looking for lower labor costs and things like that, moving south and finally moving to China, and so we had to adapt. And I say the same thing is true for the community colleges, and one of the really wonderful things that I think many of you who are part of the community college system understand is that the community colleges are much better positioned to adapt than the four-year universities. The four-year universities are fairly entrenched in their programs, their curriculums, their procedures, and everything else, whereas the community colleges evolved to serve a broader variety of needs to the communities that they're in. And their culture is one of adapting, and I think that Housatonic in particular, because I have some experience with some other ones, but I think Housatonic in particular has done an absolutely stellar job of reaching out to the business community, to the communities that Andres deals with, of children who are graduating from high school without the proper preparation for college. I mean, Housatonic has their finger on the pulse of this community that they live in, and they already adapt regularly. And I think that this strategic planning forum that you put together here is just another example of the way that Anita and everyone else at Housatonic reaches out and tries to pull in information. And what businesses do in strategic planning is they look inside their business at what their core competencies are, and they look outside at the world that they're living in, and then they try and make sure that they're meeting the needs of the customers, that they're adapting to the changes in technology. Housatonic has online courses now. Housatonic has very unique partnerships that I think they were one of the first community colleges to develop with the VOTEC schools and with the high schools, working with the state with the Bridges program. And so this is what makes Housatonic valuable to me as an employer, because they've taken the time and the effort to understand what my world is like and what my needs are. And in spite of what you may hear, we've got jobs that we're waiting to fill, and we need skilled workers. And we get either high-end engineers who want to just sit behind a desk and do design stuff, or we get completely unprepared people who can't even pass what I consider to be my 5th grade level math test for getting a job at my company. Housatonic, I recently hired a graduate from their pre-engineering program. I have an employee who's attending, or is taking some of the classes with the pre-engineering program that's in partnership with Platt Tech, and so he'll be taking hands-on courses at Platt, and actually now here, because we have all this wonderful equipment. No accident that Housatonic is one of the colleges that was chosen to be given these millions of dollars worth of equipment. It's because they take advantage of every opportunity and make sure that the programs work and that they're serving the needs of the entire community that they live in. So I think that everyone here, I'm sure, is very proud to be a part of this university. I love to tell people, Anita, how many millions of dollars worth of artwork have we got in this college? Approximately. I'm sorry. Approximately how many millions of dollars of artwork do we have here in the? Over 15 million. Okay, and to my knowledge, I don't believe there's ever been an incident of vandalism. This is not the image that most people think of when they think of Bridgeport, and the students love this school. It's another home to them. They're so proud of it, and so I think that Housatonic, we all in manufacturing do lean it's continuous improvement. Housatonic has processes in place for continually improving, and this is one piece, and I'm very proud to be participating in it. Thank you.
Dr. Schmatter.
Thank you. I want to congratulate you all. The way this planning process seems to be working here. I mean, like Dr. Kennedy, my mind boggles at how many strategic planning exercises I've been involved in the 36 years I've done this kind of work. And my experience is those that work is when you have a lot of people in the room, when it's bottom up and not top down. When it's top down, someone writes the great plan for the future. Those are the ones that end up gathering dust on shelves or killing file space on some server somewhere now. So I think this is a great start. And whatever success I think we've had at Western over the past few years, through some tough times, through times of uncertainties in budget, through changes in governance and all those things, was I think the way we did our strategic planning process back in 2005 and 6, which involved 680 people in focus groups. The faculty senate approved it unanimously. It never happened to me before. I was kind of surprised. We've been together on what we are as a university, and I think that's really been helpful, and it was grounded in that strategic plan. So it's a real opportunity to do things. I think the second reason, and this is relevant to all of us, why we as an institution at Western have had whatever success we've had is I think we've believed a message that I keep saying all the time. The work that all of us do, the four-year institutions, at the two-year institutions, is incredibly important. We create the future of this state, of this nation, of this world. And if you can't get excited about that getting up in the morning, you ought to think about what you're doing. And I think we're all partners in that here in the state. The 4 years, the community colleges, and I think we're more mindful, purposeful partners since the reorganization of the Board of Regents. And I think we're working together better, and I think it's important that we do that. In terms of specific sort of expectations, and maybe I'll be a little more specific, but I think there are some general things. I think the first expectation we all need to have as partners is that we all have to recognize our own identities and not be pushed into emulating some template that we think someone thinks we should be as an institution. Housatonic has its own very proud history here of the way you serve this region. We have ours, Southern has theirs, Naugatuck Valley has, everyone has their own vision and history. And I think it's really important that we maintain those. And I know Bob has heard me say this many times. And I don't think there's any indication from the Board of Regents that we want a one-size-fits-all here. And so I think identifying what you do well. And, if we tried to be a community college, we'd fail miserably, as an institution in Danbury. And I think that goes for all of us. So first of all, to me, in planning, being realistic and proud of what your own strengths are is really, the first step. I think in terms of expectations from the four-year campuses, obviously for the transfer students that will come to us, we're working hard as a system to develop more clear, efficient pathways to do that. And I think we're making good progress. And that's the hard work of faculty governance and curriculum development. And there's always this, as a speaker said last Friday at an event we had, that one dyspeptic math department chair can derail the whole thing. And we have to avoid that, I believe, as a system. We have to get back to, remember what our job is. We're creating the future. We're serving students. And I think we're making good progress. We have to all do that together. I think a second thing that is really important to all of us, and I'm sure you see this as well, is student readiness beyond the academic sphere. We at our university, as I'm sure you here at this college, get people coming here, young and old, who haven't sort of read the user's manual to college to the very end, who don't understand things like GPAs, how to use advisors, we all have terrific infrastructures to help students, full of dedicated, customer-friendly people, and folks don't know how to use them. And they end up Oh, I want to be a management information systems major. Oh, I got to have a 3.0 in that major, and I got a 2.1. Well, you're going to be 75 years old by the time you get the grades. Mathematically, you can't do it, you know. And those are the kind of things, helping students. I think we all have to be more mindful as soon as we get students of helping them understand what this experience of higher education is. And many of them are motivated, but they don't channel that motivation. I often say to our entering freshmen that, you know, higher education, going to college, no matter where it is, it's not like buying a hamburger at McDonald's or a BMW. It's like having a membership at the gym. What you get out of it depends on what you put in. And if you're, you know, I got up and went to the gym this morning. I really did. And so I'm not fat and you know, and out of shape. But if I just pay the money and don't go and don't get on the machines, it's not going to work. And we have to help our students understand that. I think another thing that in this partnering that's important, I think we have to emphasize and inculcate more interaction between the faculty across all of the institutions. We certainly have seen in particular majors and in areas, you know, really productive things result when faculty in given disciplines talk. And Housatonic is about our third largest feeder. Naugatuck Valley's first, Norwalk is second, and dozens of your students come to us. And I think the more our faculty interact, the better. And then finally, and this is a broader sort of thing, I think that the community colleges are terribly important to this state and to the whole education network, because for so many young people and not so young people who want to better themselves, who come from demographic backgrounds that are not privileged, maybe immigrants, English second language. You provide access. You are going to be the portal for more of those people whom we hope some will come here. And I think we have to work with you to make sure we provide that kind of access, because we know the population of our state. We know the figures about what the future looks like. We know where the growth is going to come from. We know the people we have to educate. So I think the key is partnerships, but within that partnership, identifying your own vision and your own mission, and that's what you're setting out to do here. I think it's great.
Thank you. And Mara Chiller.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to sit amongst this distinguished panel here. It's wonderful to be here, and I congratulate you on doing a very unique strategic plan. I think that this is going to be very successful, and you're going to come out with some great ideas that will set you on the path for a good many years. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program that we run and have been running since 1988 called MAX. It's Mentoring for Academic Achievement and College Success. This program was started as a way for us as a public education fund to address a need in the system that we didn't see being addressed by the school system. And that was helping our students that were in high school prepare to graduate from high school and to enter college. Many of the students that we work with are the first in their family to get a high school degree, and many of them have no aspirations to attend college. And our program started as an idea from one of our board members who thought it would be a good plan for members of his company to be mentors to the high school students in Bridgeport. And we did an assessment over a year and decided that having a group of older people who may or may not be able to commit time on a regular basis to high school students probably wasn't the best model. But knew that we were surrounded by Fairfield University, Sacred Heart University, the University of Bridgeport. We adapted a model. We were the first in the country to use college students as mentors to our high school students. On a regular year, we have at least 50 college students mentoring 350 to 400 students in our high schools. It is a unique program, and over the years it has evolved. And what we do now is not only try to get our students into college, but our main focus is to help them graduate from college. We have a success rate of 100% of our students who are in our program who get through our 2 years and go through our workshops, they all enter college. Wow. And we have 86% of our students who are in college graduate from college. Whoa. It takes a lot of work.
That is amazing.
Well, thank you. It is not easy. And every year we encounter new obstacles, we identify new issues, and it is an interesting program, and I can tell you all a lot more about it. But we have our college readiness workshops on this campus. And when our kids have been in our program for at least 2 years, and they're seniors, and they've all been accepted to college now, we come here for 2 solid days during their spring break, and we give them college readiness workshops. It's not how to study, it's not how to be a good student, it's how do you survive on a college campus when you're your own advocate. Where do you go when you need someone to help you? How do you use your advisor? How do you work with a roommate who has a boyfriend sleeping in the bed? If you're on a Catholic campus, where do you get contraceptives? We are in high schools in the city where you can walk into a school-based health center and get help and get stuff you need. You can't do that on all campuses. It's a practical application, and many of the Housatonic professors are our leaders. All of the people who run our workshops are college professors, and most of them are from Housatonic. And I'm so glad you mentioned the art collection. You didn't even know about the art collection.
No idea.
We take our kids on a tour because this is one of the best art collections probably in the state. It is just amazing, and people don't know it, and it's a great resource for our students. The workshops are held in classrooms. They are here for 2 solid days, and they have a really good sense of what it's going to be like to go onto a college campus. The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was what Housatonic has done with an alliance that was created almost 11 years ago called the Bridgeport Higher Education Alliance. And it was an idea that came from people who had a grant from the Nellie Mae Foundation to look at what the big issues were around obstacles for students being ready for college. And they brought together all the local colleges. Lots of colleges were invited. People came from Hartford, they came from Norwalk, they came from New Haven. But it was the core group right here in Bridgeport that was the core of the Bridgeport Higher Education Alliance. And Housatonic was one of the big key players. And Dr. Hadley was the president at that time, and she came to the very first meeting. She says, I'm not coming to one more meeting unless you tell me the biggest issue that you're going to address is why these high school students are not prepared to take college level courses. She says, my professors don't want to be remedial teachers. And that has been the key issue of that Higher Education Alliance now for almost 10 years. Is the problem solved? No. But are we making inroads? Yes. And I think Housatonic has stepped up, particularly with the students in the Bridgeport schools, to offer college classes while they're still in high school, to give them classes and help them on their way so that when they do enter college, they're prepared to take college level courses. Not use their student aid and their financial assistance for classes that aren't going to be giving them any credits. The other thing that we've been really looking at with Housatonic is a stronger partnership with our students who want to go off to college. The biggest issue lots of our students face is financial, and scholarships are few. Financial aid is less. It is harder and harder for the kids who want to go to college to go to their first choice. And when they come to us during our workshops and say, you know, I want to go to Syracuse, it's my first choice, I got in. But I've got a $20,000 gap. What am I going to do? He said, our advice to them is, you're going to have to look at another college. There's no way you're going to be able to fill that gap, because if it's $20,000 this year, next year's 22, then it's 23, and then it's 25. And where are you? These kids do not have resources. Their families don't have resources. They cannot always do what they want to do. Our best advice now is, let's talk about Housatonic. You can go to Housatonic for 2 years. You can afford it. And if there isn't an articulation agreement now with the college you want to go to, I've heard the president say there will be by the time you finish here. And if you want to take your credits and go someplace else, you have a great start, and you're not going to be in debt for the rest of your life. So you've got a lot going here. The manufacturing program that you're doing is just incredible. We were asked to help spread the word, and we did to all our students who were seniors. And what did we find out? My dad would love to go to this class. You know, can my cousin get in? What about my brother? So all of a sudden, it wasn't just our students, it was everybody who was connected in this bigger world who said, this is a fabulous opportunity. So, thank you.
Great. We've heard several themes that I was picking up on from our panelists. And many of them are very passionate about the collaboration and being more engaged with the community. We also heard a little bit of focus on applied programs and some of our trade programs to help better prepare them for our existing workforce. We've also heard culture, adaptability, and being able to help prepare the students for what the college experience will be. And we've also heard a lot about student readiness and also how important and critical all of us are to empowering our students in creating a future and allowing them to kind of create their own success. So how many of you can share one of those passions in this room? Show of hands. Don't be shy. Good. That means you're in the right place, right? Because good minds, when they think alike and they get together, they're able to kind of create this energy and this synergy to really move things forward. So with that said, and we're talking about student readiness, and also one of the other things that we heard was mentoring, which I think is going to be really key. And I kind of like the way you've sort of given us the background on that program. But with that being said, Senator Bai, can you respond to, with the system kind of allowing all students coming in, this open door policy, do you think that's changing? What students should the community college be serving?
Well, I mean, it's a complicated question. I mean, I think the community college should be serving any student that wants to come and give it their best shot to make it. I think some of the important things that were said on this panel is it's so much more than going to class. And some of the research on the achievement gap, it's about traits like persistence and grit. And so I think there are ways to encourage those skills in students long before they get to community college, but that doesn't mean if they don't have those skills that you're not going to give them a shot, because sometimes an interesting class is exactly what students need to succeed. And I'll just give you one example. At our high school, 40% of African American students at one of our high schools were failing U.S. history, 40%. And we are a community with a real mix of students. I think we're almost 40% minority students in West Hartford now. And so the department supervisor came in and said, this isn't their problem, this is our problem, and what are we going to do? And so the school added a class called the U.S. History Through the African American Experience. It's been in place 3 years now. Every year there's another section. It's an integrated class. There's a mix of students who are interested in a different perspective on U.S. history. And in the past 3 years, only 2 students have failed among hundreds and hundreds. So it's an adjustment. It wasn't like, well, these kids, what was happening is in the faculty meeting, they were saying, well, the kids aren't ready. They can't write an essay. They can't write a paragraph. How are they going to pass U.S. history? And the departments, and the parents don't care if they do their homework. And the department supervisor said, no. What are we going to do? And I think community colleges are very good at that. What are we going to do to make an adjustment? And so the adjustment was take a curriculum that has more interesting content to students and approach it with primary sources instead of drill and kill or whatever else was going on in the memorizing. And so it took the teachers some adjustment, but I use that as an example of a successful intervention when people were saying, these kids aren't ready, they're not going to make it. And the whole idea is then some of those students now roll into APUS with the same teacher. And so it's been a very successful intervention to get students who were failing into an AP level class by high expectations and appealing to their interests and having themselves see them as an intellect versus someone that has to come in and do what they're told to do. And why don't you want to pass this test? So I'll stop there. I don't know if that's what you were looking for.
Any other thoughts from the panelists about the type of students that community colleges should be serving?
I think that it is changing, and there's a lot of efforts to change the remedial piece of it, but that's an important unfortunate reality that the community colleges are best structured to deal with at this point in time until we're able to graduate these kids college ready and have them be able to come straight in and matriculate. What Beth was saying about relevance, I think that's really important, and the perseverance. One of the problems that we have in business is that we get the product of teaching to the test, and whether it's not so much coming out of here, you unfortunately get the product of the teaching to the test, but one of the things that we've asked for, a lot of us are on something called TTAC committees, Trade and Technology Advisory Committees with the VOTEC schools, and one of the things that we've been asking for is for the teachers to allow kids to fail, give them problems that they don't have all the resources or information yet to solve, allow them to fail, and then push and encourage and show them how you work through a failure by going out and getting the rest of the resources that you need to solve the problems. And that goes into the interdisciplinary piece, which is those resources might be in a different department. In my world, it might be that the problem that they're having in their machining is actually in the program that was created in the CAD department, or it's in the electronics in the circuit board. We talked, Bob Klansko, who is here today, is on the New Haven Manufacturers Association's Education Committee and was a former chair, and Chris, who's the current chair, we were talking the other day, and Bob said that one of his clients hires a lot of engineers, and one of the tests that he gives when they come in for an interview is he has all of the maintenance records for all of the equipment on his computer. He sends the students in, the job applicants, and these are graduated engineers, and says, I want you to print off the maintenance records and bring them to me. What he doesn't tell them is he unplugged the printer. And my IT guy would certainly, be able to relate to this. But there's, when you're troubleshooting, there's a place you start, and he doesn't care how they get it to him. They could stick it on a flash drive and bring it to somebody else's office and say, "Can you print this? I can't," or they can, track the wires, figure it out. But the ones that come back with the printout, they move on to the next stage. But we need to allow our kids to fail, and we need to give them opportunities to fail and help them to realize that failure is just a step on the path to success, and that when they come into my company, if they're just paralyzed the first time they hit a bump in the road, they're just not going to make it.
Yeah, stay. I want you to respond to that as well. But I also want you to also add to your response. In terms of getting them ready, we've heard a success story about how you can change the content and get the students more interested in learning such that it allows them to actually increase their academic performance. But go the next step further in terms of how do we really get them prepared for college level courses as well?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to respond. One of the things that I let myself be guided by is I was in one of the classes this past year and having a conversation with the students, just talking about what it is to be a state legislator, roles and responsibilities. And then the conversation sort of veered off into the remediation that's going on here at Housatonic and how that works or doesn't work. And one of the things that really struck me with the conversation was there were several of the students that said, if not for the remediation, I wouldn't be the honor student that I am today. And that really struck me because in this conversation of remediation, we're kind of, everyone's caught up on this idea that a lot of the financial aid monies are going into the remediation courses and all this other, and then at the end, they're not able to use financial aid to help them get through. But this one particular student really was really strong about insisting that the fact that she got the remediation that she got here at Housatonic has really brought her to the point where she has now become an honor student. And she was pleading me to ensure that we would not take that away from the students. So I think that when we're talking about this investment that's being done with remediation, that not be lost in the conversation, because it's extremely important. Coming from the Bridgeport school system, oftentimes I've run into former students that have come to me and say, you know what, Mr. Ayala, if not for being in your class, I probably would have dropped out. I probably would have given up. So what happens is we have a group of students that, for whatever it's worth, they're looking for that one lifeline. They're looking for that one opportunity that really makes it click and say, you know what, I can compete. I can do this. And we never know where it's going to happen, or with who it's going to happen, or in which class, or with what professor. It might be that it just clicks. So, in my opinion, it's extremely important that that we don't fail to cast that net as far and as wide as possible, because what we might catch by casting it that far, it could be phenomenal. What we're catching there. So that would be my opinion. Now, as far as the preparation of it, I think that the Bridgeport school system, I give a lot of credit to Superintendent Ballas right now, who's working with our neighboring universities to ensure that we have our juniors and our seniors getting that taste of what college is like. And Housatonic is a big part of that work that's going on. And exposing our students to that preparation. Sometimes they just don't get it by being in the halls of high school. Sometimes it takes walking through the halls of Housatonic Community College, walking through the halls of Sacred Heart University to kind of let that light bulb click on and say, wow, it is possible. So this partnership that the Board of Education has with our local colleges is extremely, extremely important. And we can't pull away from the fact that, for better or for worse, our teachers have to work harder at the high school setting to make sure that we're doing everything possible to prepare our students. And this whole idea that we're just going to let them get by, and it's not acceptable anymore.
Marge, I know you're anxious to speak, I see. And I know you spoke a lot about the mentoring program, which I'm sure is a great help to helping high school students get interested in college and getting their mind prepared. I'm also aware that there are various programs with high schools that allow high school students to take college courses. And usually they're targeted to students that are already at a high academic performance. But what about those who are not, but yet still need to be college ready? What more can the high schools do to help get them ready?
Well, there are a lot of college access programs that exist in our high schools, and some of them are tutoring programs. And all it takes is for a student to say, I want to go to college, for them to be able to find a service or an organization that can help them do that. Maybe 6 years ago, the Education Fund decided that we were all tripping over each other in the high schools. Talent Search, Upward Bound, Excel, Project Excel, there's a lot of different kinds of college access programs. And we formed something called CAB, the College Access Alliance of Bridgeport. Now, to be a college access program in the high schools, you have to belong to CAB. And also, if you belong to CAB, you're allowed to enter Power Schools, which is the data collecting system that the district uses, which means that we can tag our students. So if someone's in Max, they're not going to be in Talent Search. They're not going to be in Upward Bound. They're not going to be in Gear Up. They're going to be in a program, but they can be in a program that really meets their needs. Students in our programs are good students. There are other students who want to go to college who need tutoring, and they need more attention. And there is a program for them, and we've tried to collaborate that. I really wanted to pick up on something that Beth said about teaching. And I want to challenge the president about how people are prepared to teach. And I'll give you an example. This year, the district bought a whole new curriculum, and it's all the Common Core curriculum. And it's a challenge for our teachers. There's also an art magnet elementary school in Bridgeport that is struggling with how to embed their arts curriculum into the new curriculum. Because what they're really being forced to do is take this curriculum and try to still do their arts thing. And I think that's backwards. I think they need to be the arts school, and they need to figure out how to use this new curriculum so it boosts their art curriculum. And I think that's a struggle for some of the teachers who haven't been steeped in project-based learning or the kind of things that really are exciting to kids. They're fun, they're projects, they don't even know they're learning math. And I will also tell you that it's been my experience that the teachers who come from WestConn are some of the best teachers that come in to our school system. They are totally prepared to take the curriculum and to do classroom management.
Well, not being defensive at all, and I appreciate that.
I had to put in a little plug there
I think
because
that-
it is true.
I think that there's so much pressure on public higher education now in terms of funding, in terms of changing. I talk to our friends, in our school districts, and they say, when you're talking about, educating teachers to function in 2012 is different than not just 2000 or 2005. It's different than 2010. There are so many changes. And, I think it's fair to say that we have not been, across the board, schools of education have not been as proactive and as agile, going back to some of the ways the university, it's one of our strengths, but it's one of our weaknesses in terms of being agile. I think that what we found, though, we have some, and we've been running a program in Danbury and Bethel called Bridges for a number of years that has really worked in terms of cutting down the need for remediation from more than 60% in math and writing 7 years ago to 5% in writing and 18% in math. But it's been our faculty working with teachers, and it's not been our education faculty, it's been our math and writing faculty who've done it. And that sort of mutual respect, I think, is so important in all this whole venture that we have. And that mutual respect should go between community college and university faculty and to the K through 12 people as well, because to the point made earlier, we've learned with the Bridges program that high school may be too late in many cases to intervene. And we're getting students from those school districts on our campus when they're in middle school in a very purposeful kind of way so they can imagine themselves. I'm sure you're doing the same thing. But it's a real challenge. And if one sector could have fixed this, it had been fixed long time ago.
Yes.
Just very quickly, can people hear me? Is my microphone on?
I don't think so. I don't know.
I think it might have ran out of batteries because it was blinking that it was about trying to. Can you hear me now? Okay. Just 2 quick points. I want to just follow up on Andre's point about remediation as sort of the author of the bill about remediation that went through the House and Senate and the governor signed. The idea wasn't to get rid of a remediation. The idea was to change the way that remediation is delivered so that it's delivered in a way that's accelerating students toward degrees. So I just want to be clear about that, because I think even in the national press, there's been a lot of misrepresentation about what's happening in Connecticut. And the point was to give a couple of years for the campuses to come up with strategies that they're using now. And in proposing the bill, there are a lot of things going on campuses now that are successful. So giving them time to sort of make those things real before it goes live. The other thing is just about the teachers and the role of higher education in preparing teachers. And I mean, the community colleges have done an incredible job of preparing early childhood teachers. And if you talk about going back early, I used to say when I worked at Trinity College Childcare, I would hire a Capital Community early childhood teacher, 2-year degree, over another nearby institution's 4-year degree early childhood teacher, because it was a vocational, it was those workplace skills that they came with. So I'll start by saying I think community colleges could have more of a role in developing 4-year teachers as a beginning ground, but I'll also say that I think as a nation, about 40 years ago, as women entered the workforce, we decided that teaching was a vocation and not a profession. You know, my grandmother graduated from the Bridgeport Public Schools in the late 20s, went to Smith, became a teacher, top of her class. That's what the women did. Both of my grandmothers were teachers. Another went to normal school and went on to be a teacher. These were 2 very bright women who went on to be teachers. When I went on to work in early childhood ed as a good student, people were like, what? You need to be a doctor or a lawyer. You can't be a teacher. And I think we relegated teaching to a vocation. And now I think there's a movement, and I think the community colleges could be a part of it, that teaching is should be, and I think in many cases is, a highly respected profession that our best people go to. And I think you can't be a good teacher if you're not forced to have a 4-year degree where you get deep into a subject, where you get in over your head because it's so complicated, instead of taking curriculum class after curriculum class after curriculum class. Teach them to be historians and then have them teach history. I took 6 years of child development before I worked in a child care center. It made me a very different toddler teacher. And then I spent 13 years on the floor with 2-year-olds. But all 6 years about education, and now I use those skills every day in my new job. I'm a toddler teacher. But I say this because I'm so passionate about it, and I've watched how community colleges have turned out these great early childhood teachers because they focus on child development and they understand young children, not because they spent another curriculum class. And I think our State Department of Ed is to blame, because when Trinity College's president came before us, I said, why aren't you putting out teachers? I'm married, my wife is a graduate of Trinity and then PhD from Brown, high school teacher. Why aren't you putting out teachers anymore? And he said, well, all the requirements the State Department of Ed puts on us to turn out teachers, as a small college, we can't offer all those classes. And now you see kids coming out and doing Teach for America, but they haven't had the background, so it's sort of going background, but that's now how we're getting our pipeline of teachers. So I think we need to, as a culture, decide teaching is like being a doctor or lawyer, and it can start at the community college and go through. We want our best and brightest back again.
And with that said, I do think that we can all recognize with this economy and the demands of certain types of employment that there are a lot of different requirements. And a lot of the requirements are 4-year degrees. And so when we're thinking about how the community colleges can help play a role, we know that the new program to allow them to come to a community college for 2 years and then transfer over into a 4-year institution. So Dr. Smatter, what more can we do? Because I've heard some issues with several students not being able to transfer all their credits, being a little discouraged with the program, not feeling that it's a great success in helping them transition to a 4-year institution. So what more can be done in that avenue, seeing how there's a demand for it?
I think it's underway right now, what needs to be done, and that is a more systematic partnership where everyone in all 17 institutions, public institutions of the state, understand what the first writing course is, what the curriculum is, and everyone accepts it. I think throughout the system, there are many examples where it works very well on an institution-to-institution base. But the real trick is getting it to the level where a student can come from Quinnebog to Western, which very few do, but they're going to be okay. I mean, we're pretty good with Housatonic, or with Naugatuck Valley, with Norwalk, because we see a lot of students in our faculty work. The thing is to have a whole system, so it is, everyone is working from the same scorecard, everyone's speaking the same language, academic equivalents are set and accepted by all concerned. So you don't have, as I said before, 1 or 2 people in one department of the 4 years say, well, that's not the course that I taught, and that doesn't count because you don't cover binomial something or other, in the math course, and we just can't have that anymore, and then faculty, it's challenging, and we have to do that within the realm of understanding academic freedom. But I think the key is, I think we're having success because we've really directed the faculty to do it. We try to do this top down, it's just not going to work. I think faculty colleagues in all 17 institutions have to understand how important this is, and it is part of their basic work. And it's complex because there's a lot of courses, a lot of things to work through. But I think given the complexity of it, I think we're making very good progress. There were squeals when the Board of Regents said, no, we're going to do this. We're not going to take 5 years to study it. We're going to do it now. And they were saying, well, God, you know. But people have gotten past that, I believe, across the system. And I think that we'll see, because it's a question of sharing information and everyone speaking the same vocabulary and accepting and respecting what everyone does.
Good. Yes.
On the other end of that, the bottom-up piece, as a manufacturer, I've mentioned lean. One of the rules in lean is that if you improve the first 15% of a process, you get 85% of the potential benefit. And the first 15% is when the student walks through the door and meets with admissions and talks to guidance people. And I think that the community colleges are geared up to do a better job of that, but I think that there's still room for improvement as far as sitting down with students at that point when they're walking in the door, counseling them and helping them understand that the choices that they make as far as their courses are going to have long-term impacts as far as the directions that they have open to them, and that it's very important that they really do spend time with guidance counselors to really think about and look at, if I follow this path, this is where it's going to end up. If I follow this path, it's going to end up over there, and make sure that the guidance counselors really help them to put together programs where they don't take classes that are going to, end up not carrying forward or not going to apply to a degree, and that they do make the best use of their time and their schedule.
I want to bring up a different topic now. And I believe one of our panelists spoke to about the cost of attending college, and also I want to reflect on a little bit of how the economy has changed and has somewhat forced the student demographics to change a little bit, because we have more adults now going back to school, changing careers, trying to pick up a different trade. And so we've seen the educational learning environment change over the last few years into more online classes. And we've seen these distant learning programs. So Dr. Kennedy, can you speak to how the community college should advance with this? What's its role? What's the balance between providing these online classes versus your on-campus learning?
And I think the advent of online learning certainly is something that's challenging all of higher education. And you mentioned earlier too, Carla, the average age of community college students looking to President Klinicki for confirmation year is 27. Now you might think it might be 22 or 23, but it's 27 across our 12 colleges. So we really are reaching a different demographic than you might think of as in terms of students going to college. The right balance, I may word it differently, the availability. The good thing about online education is if it's available, you can take it anywhere. So we need to make sure that we've got a whole portfolio of courses available, not only within the 17 institutions within our system, but across all colleges and universities. One of the latest movements is the massively online courses that different colleges are offering across the country, admittedly at different price points that may affect things. But one thing we need to encourage is for students to consider if they're needing a course, they can get it someplace else. That's the balance that we need, and appreciation that they can do that. We're fortunate in Connecticut in having Charter Oak State College, which can offer online courses, and we're the state's only online public institution. I was at a college, community college last fall, and a student was lamenting that she had to stay around an extra year just to pick up one engineering course before transferring. And it's too bad that you have to spend a whole year's tuition and the time and not getting into the workforce just to take that one course. And we're trying to work on a system where more of those courses are available across our 17 institutions, and that will really help in terms of advancing students and getting them into the workforce and saving them money. So
Great
it's not
idea.
so much a balance of, at Housatonic, 17% of the courses or 20% of the courses are online, as is it available elsewhere? Because if it's available someplace else, they can take it.
Yeah, and I think that Bob is absolutely correct. I think we can do more in a system fashion to use distance learning. I would, and I think we can do much more, but I would caution that, especially for some of the population that we've been talking about, the distance learning is not a panacea, and it doesn't work the same way for all student groups. I think that the national data, in the aggregate would suggest that the most effective distance learning experiences are ones where it's a whole program and where there's some kind of residency that people can come together. And also for more career-oriented older learners. For folks trying to get from 6th grade math to college, I think there's a lot of experience just saying go take online courses. It just doesn't work. And actually we went through a period early in my tenure where we were doing a lot of the remedial math. We were teaching on a computer-based system, and it was a disaster. I have pizza with students once a month, and for years that's all I heard about how terrible this was and how they would have to take it 6 times. And so we basically stopped and replaced all that with real people. And it made a huge, huge difference. So it's not a panacea. It's an important tool that we can all use a lot better, I think, in this state. I think we're a little behind some states in terms of what we do here, but it's not a panacea.
Just quick. There's huge disparities in the quality of online learning, and what you really don't want to see in online learning is a professor taping his lectures and just sticking them on. Good quality online learning, and I agree it is much better suited for the more disciplined older student who's really taking it to accomplish a specific goal, involves the professors and the other students collaborating on projects and having direct interaction, and so it's a tough fit for a school. Housatonic has it, but it's a tough fit for a school like Housatonic that really what they offer that is most helpful is what Andres talked about, the opportunity for students to meet that mentor and have the relationship and really find new paths in their life.
Yes, Senator Bai.
Just a quick follow-up, because I think some of the online learning leads into the discussion about the for-profit colleges and the predatory behavior going on for students. And there's so much marketing that I think as a state, I don't know, as you think about your strategic planning, I think it's our responsibility as a state to think about investing in marketing about our community college and state universities to students, because there's endless marketing by for-profit colleges that are taking students who'd be going to community college at 3 times the price, and students are graduating at not nearly the rate. And just to give you a sense of scale of this problem, last year there was $35 billion taken in by for-profit colleges, and $32 billion of that came from state and federal sources. So they have found a way in, the hedge fund managers and the colleges, to the higher ed public money. And they are, if you sit home, I was just with my father for quite a period, who was ill, looking at TV during the day, and they are targeting kids who are home with online, easy, no money down, easy to get through, 4-year degree, and they're even dumb enough in their advertising to advertise programs that are not going to get kids a job, that if you study higher ed at all, but they don't know it. They make it sound like you can get a degree in drug and alcohol counseling in 6 months and be working. Not that it's really about 10 years by the time you finish your degree to get the $175 an hour, and you're never going to get there. So I do think as a state, or I don't know how Housatonic thinks about this as you do your strategic planning, I think it's like our responsibility to let students know that there are much more affordable programs with better outcomes and save them from these predators, frankly. I hate to sound paternalistic, but I watch people pay for tap water, and you can market anything.
I warn my employees about those.
1,000 times the cost.
Well, we know with marketing, it takes funds to be able to do that, and we're trying to, and I think we're faced with a lot of challenges in meeting a variety of needs for students. Just seeing how the demographics of the students are, they're changing and they're more broad in perspective. So, what's the anticipation of state funding for community colleges? What can Housatonic gain to see or hope to see with state funding to help implement some of their initiatives and perhaps market a little bit more, even for entrepreneurship with some of the businesses and corporations? How can, and what responsibility is it on them to help raise some funds?
I think there's responsibility on us as public policymakers to say, this is a problem right now in higher education that is stealing students' opportunities for future education because it's using up their Pell and loans. They're in over their heads. It hurts our economy. It hurts our workforce. Connecticut sells itself as having the most highly educated workforce. And if we keep losing students to this cycle, and really, the federal, we all want more money for Pell Grants and student loans to put it in reach. But really, how much? Because now, as we put more and more money into it, more and more is getting siphoned off. So I think there's a cautious balance, but I think policymakers have a responsibility to let constituents know what's available. So I do think we have a responsibility. So I'll look to Dr. Kennedy for a proposal for.
We're all looking at him.
State Representative, can you talk a little bit about the visions of the legislator and the Board of Regents and their role let's see, I want to kind of piggyback a little bit more on the cost, but can you talk about from your perspective with the state legislator, how is that going to influence funding, how it gets allocated, and how the community colleges can better use that funding for their initiatives?
Sure. Well, funding is an interesting conversation because from the world where I come in at the local high school, elementary level, I mean, we're having those same conversations here in Bridgeport. How do we get more funding for our local school systems, and how do we get more funding for our higher ed? So it's a very interesting conversation that we really need to. I think it's all about an investment, and if we make an investment in our educational system, starting from early childhood, our local Board of Educations, and into higher education, I think that it actually gives us some money so that if we fund it in the front end, whatever is in the back end, we don't have to provide the funding for alternative programs and go into our Department of Corrections and places like that. Because one of the interesting things that I found out as a state legislator is that we're funding our Department of Corrections almost to the same tune of higher ed. So, I mean, that in and of itself is a tremendous statement, and when we're looking at what our priorities are. So, with that said, if we look at funding our educational system, starting from very early on all the way up through higher education, do we get a better bang for our buck? I beg to say we do. And I think that those are the conversations and the priorities that the state of Connecticut really needs to look and say, is this what we want to do? And by doing this, are we actually going to see a greater gain in our investment? And I believe that it's really the way that we need to be looking at it, and we need to be concentrated on that. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. I mean, this balance of how we fund the Department of Corrections as to how we fund our higher education didn't happen overnight, but it happened. And I think that as legislators, we need to make a concentrated effort to say that will no longer be our priority. We want to make sure that we stop that tide going that way and bring it back to what we know would be proven and can work for us.
I hear a request for a proposal there, too.
Okay, I'm going to ask each one of you to give maybe about 20 seconds, because I do want to open up the floor for some questions. Quickly define student success The community college is here really looking to develop their strategic plan, looking forward to in putting in programs and different things to better improve the education that they're providing. But yet in doing so, we need to be able to start to measure that. And measure what it means and measure the outcomes. So quickly define student success. We'll start here and we'll go right around.
I'll speak as the former business school dean I used to be. It's employability and promotability. Having the skills to get a first job, but having the skills then to continue in the career and life to develop.
And so to answer that, what I'm looking for is those skills, but most importantly, I'm looking for critical thinking and problem solving, because you can, learn some skills, but then you hit a wall if you don't have the ability to take it to the next step.
Okay, great.
Student success I define as what serves the student, and as public institutions, what serves the needs of the state. That's partially why we're here. In terms of what serves the students, they don't always know what serves the students. So we need to be mindful of that. In terms of what serves the state, certainly economic development and employability, as President Schreiner indicated, particularly at this time with the economy and the job situation, we need to be ever mindful of that. Housatonic with the manufacturing center, I think, is a very good response. The legislature obviously was very tuned into this and provided the opportunity. But with 4 community colleges now, about 140 students enrolled in those manufacturing programs right now, but some 1,800 jobs that are available in the manufacturing center. Over time, we will begin to address that, but it's a great beginning.
Marge.
Success for our students, we define as the ability to graduate from college in 5 years or less.
To me, following on you all, is that I think improved knowledge for students and improved critical thinking that will benefit them for the rest of their life in whatever they do. And I think, what we know about this democracy and what Jefferson said when he wrote the Declaration and when he's thought about the Constitution and who we are, it's that it's vital for a successful democracy to have an educated citizenry. And we are seeing some of the effects of not having an educated citizenry right now in this election. So critical thinking, educated citizenry.
Great.
I think that success would be increased graduation rate and seeing our students being employed at the jobs what they're actually studying for.
Great. All right, I want to open it up to any questions. Oh, already. All right, I'm going to walk around a little bit, get my exercise in, and I want you to speak in the mic, and we'll see who else has any more questions. Excuse me.
I'm Bob Klanskow. I'm with the New Haven Manufacturers. And as I've been listening to you this morning, I see a great disconnect, and I see one gap. Let me talk about the gap first, because I like your input. The gap is, have you ever read the Code of Federal Regulations? The Code of Federal Regulations, which would probably fill both screens and the volumes, are the regulations put out by the federal government on how we've got to conduct business. If we read those, I challenge you to find anywhere where it says you need a high school diploma, you need a college degree, you need a doctor's degree. What it says in there, though, is you must be licensed, you must be certified, you must be trained. And I really see a disconnect here, and I've even looked at the catalog here. You're not looking at certifications. I'm a licensed professional engineer. There are things I can do as a licensed professional engineer that a person with a PhD in engineering cannot do. Why? Because it's the law. If we talk about the employability of young people and skills, which is part of their education process, we need to recognize what is required for them to be a success. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs do not have college degrees. Look what they've done. It's knowledge, the employment of knowledge, and skills that's so required. And I've got to go along with a lot of what Beth said, because she hit some chords with me, because it is these skills we've got to look at. If we take a look at the Sound School in New Haven, 25% of the students are learning disabled. Yet, in my view, this is the #1 high school in Connecticut. Why? Experiential learning. And this is the other factor you have not addressed. We've recognized New Haven manufacturers that our major problem with STEM skills in high schools and science in high schools are the teachers who are teaching chemistry, physics, and whatever have never been employed and never worked in the area. My biggest problem with the engineering schools, with Mung Choi up at UConn and University of New Haven, their faculty now have never worked in industry, yet they're teaching engineers. We can't use those engineers. They can't plug in the computer printer. Now, I'd like to get your input. I'd like to get your input on this skills versus education. To me, education is great, and I taught at the Harvard Graduate Center for 35 years. But it's the skills that we impart that will last them over their life skills, or their lifetime. Please, give me your input on this skills issue.
Yep.
I would just say, as you speak, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a both and. I mean, I think that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are incredible examples, and you can go back to Einstein and I'm forgetting who's the famous one from Connecticut who was learning disabled. You know, so there are a lot of examples of people like that with grit and curiosity. But I don't think you give up on moving people toward degrees, because as a policymaker, when you look overall, if you look at this recession and make a correlation by years of education and impact of the recession, the more years of education you have, the less this recession has affected you. But I think you need the skills too, and I think you're right, we need more applied skills. And if you read Thomas Friedman's new book called That Used to Be Us, he basically says one of our problems is we took our intellectuals and sent them off to Bell Labs, and now innovation is happening on the manufacturing floor. So if we give up manufacturing, we give up innovation. That's as important as the job. So it's both and. I think you raise a really important point, but I think it's both.
Any other responses?
Back when my dad was running our business, we hired people and put them through apprenticeship programs. And back in those days, most of our employees went through Bullard Havens. They came out with between 8,000 and 10,000 hours of classroom and hands-on experience in order to become a journeyman, and when they put that on a job application, that meant something. That's something that is coming back. The certificate that Housatonic is offering, I think, is going to mean something to manufacturers. I know that Housatonic is well known for their nursing program, and I'm sure that that's not a 4-year degree, that's 2 years, but it means something when they apply for jobs. And I agree with Bob that in business today, having some type of certification that can be relied on so that when businesses look at it, we know what it means, we know what they're bringing to the table, and it's across the board is really important. And it's being done in the VOTEC schools throughout the state with the NIMS certifications, those types of programs. That's all in collaboration with business. And so I do agree that from a business perspective, we need to know when someone comes to us and they put something on their job application and their resume, we need to know what it means and very specifically know what it means, what skills and training they're bringing to the table.
Any other questions from the floor? Yes, all right.
I'm Chuck Merrick. I teach business and economics here at Housatonic Community College. I have a question for Dr. Schmatter and Dr. Kennedy, and I'll apologize in advance if the question is based on ignorance. I tend to specialize in that. As we look at these programs where we're trying to increase the articulation between the community colleges and the four-year colleges, the concern that I walk away with is that the programs that are being put together that prepare the student for the four-year college prepare the student for the four-year college. If there is a change in that student's circumstances, the degree that that student gets from the two-year college won't provide the skills that the employers are looking for. And I have to believe that if we work at it just a little bit harder, we can come up with a program where we've got the full articulation so that the credits transfer and the associate's degree has a standalone value to the student and to employers.
I would think that's really essential. And whether you can, again, it's going to depend probably on the major, but making sure there's enough room that there is value in the degree beyond just transferring, you know. I think that's really, really important. And again, there's a lot of moving parts in this, but that's one that should be attended to, as well as someone mentioned, the right kind of advising and making sure that students understand that if you make that choice after you've taken 6 hours or 9 hours, it's a lot easier than if you've got to 28 hours.
I'll just add a couple of things. President Schmatter indicated that the Board of Regents adopted a policy last December for transferability of credits from the community colleges to the universities. One of the driving forces behind that was in my tour around the state, I learned that it was easier sometimes for our community college students to transfer credits to UConn than it was within our own system. Really a deplorable situation. Or they were taking many, many credits and they weren't able to be transferred. Jim talked about that. With the board policy, and there are faculty committees working on that right now, as Jim indicated, students who finish 2 years at a community college will be admitted to one of our universities with junior standing and, as part of the board policy, with credit for general education or core requirements, which is generally the preparation to go in different directions. So, in fact, part of the policy is to make sure that they have that general education core requirements met before they transfer to university, making it no guarantee, but making it a little bit easier that they're still able to go in different directions.
Great. Well, we got one more question to get before we go into our next segment, but you'll have more of an opportunity to talk to our panelists a little later on. But one more question, yes.
Great. Hi, Marjorie Bernard from the University of Bridgeport's Talent Search Program. And my question is for Kathy Saint. I know you've talked about, you know, the Schroedel Stamp Company and things like that and what you do. But does your company, work with Housatonic to do, let's say, a co-op or just like the gentleman said, an internship? Because, it's all well and good that students come to you after they graduate Housatonic, but what do, let's say, a company like yours do for the students at Housatonic while they're in school?
One thing that I've done for quite a number of years is something called the Girls in Tech Day. And what that does, and these aren't for the students at Housatonic, but we come here and we show young girls who are in middle school the opportunities that are available in jobs in technology, and then they also get to see what the school is all about. Then when students get to Housatonic, there are internships that are available. I don't have any from Housatonic right now. I've got 2 from Fairfield U, but we do internships in our business where we bring students in, we pay them. They work there. We're talking about at the high school level, and I would imagine that the long-term goal would be to expand this process to the college level as well, doing externships for teachers so that they can come and actually see what's going on in our businesses, because as Bob was talking about before, one of the problems that we have is that a lot of people who are teaching our future employees are academically trained, but they are not actually versed in what happens on the floor in our factories. So I get drawings from engineers where everything is to 4 decimal places because the kid who did the design accepted the defaults in the program and has no idea that he just exponentially increased the cost of that part, probably by 8 times when 3 decimal places or 2 would have worked. So we do a lot of work in partnership with the colleges for students to come, do plant tours, do job shadowing, do internships, and then we also like to work directly with the instructors so that the stuff they're teaching the kids actually includes, the real world application of what they're learning.
All right. Well, I think this has been a very fruitful discussion, and I would like all of us to just give them a round of applause for taking the time out to come and share. Thank you so much. And I'm sure you've all heard the expression that it takes a village to raise a child. And I dare to say that it almost takes a village. It takes all of us to help educate, to help mentor, and to help prepare our students for the next level of their education as well as for the workforce.